thing for the sound?
You're right. Thank you for that reminder. I'm a little bit discombobulated this morning.
Good morning and welcome. I'll say good morning, John. All right, there we go. Good morning and welcome to January 31st. We're here at the last one for January. Boy, what a sports weekend we had. There's some great football games. Certainly U.S. soccer going where they got a little bit closer. Unfortunately, it didn't work out yesterday, but we'll hopefully Wednesday they can start to secure a place in the World Cup. And perhaps the best for me was those amazing Australian Open finals. Certainly, as a big Nadal fan, that was an awesome match, and just a lot of credit to him. That was exciting. But we also had lots of good, exciting things happen here. Wanted to cover one of those. Wanted to recognize somebody who does an excellent job for our community, Senator Doug Broxson. He was the recipient this year of the God and Government Award at the annual prayer breakfast on Saturday. Certainly appreciate what Doug does for this community, and certainly serving both showing that certainly God has a place in as we work through things and in what we do. He's a good example of that, and I certainly have enjoyed working with him and thought he was a great selection for the event, so I did at least want to congratulate him as well. A couple other things happened this past week, one of which is the City of Pensacola has replaced the traffic signals on Government and Bayland and Government and Spring with four-way stops. I think we've told you that this was coming. We've been focused on continuing to create pedestrian improvements. We think that the four-way stop is more consistent with what we do in the remainder of downtown than the traffic signals, and we think it has made for a safer pedestrian environment. And more than anything else, these two were sort of remnants of the old system that had not been taken out, so we were happy to get that done. I want to say a huge thank you to our team. I see Amy Tootle and David out there and their whole team in getting this moved forward and getting done. This has been a real focus of things that we've wanted to do in our community, and I appreciate their work to make that happen and get that finished off. The traffic signals at both intersections will remain flashing red until they are removed in the coming weeks. Drivers should use caution and approach the intersections as a four-way stop. The traffic study was conducted at both intersections and found the current traffic volumes did not warrant the need for traffic signals and should be replaced to four-way stops. Installing four-way stop signage will make both intersections safer for all travelers and pedestrians. The other big thing that we did, we had a good meeting with DOT, and there's a lot of things that are going on with DOT and the projects that they're working with. Obviously, the biggest one that we continue to work with them about is continuing to look at 17th Avenue and the bridge landing as well as the bridge. Had a real good discussion with them. I don't think the bridge will officially get open until fall of 22, but there is the hope, that we might be driving on it a little bit sooner than that. They're continuing to work on everything. We discussed a little bit more with the landing. It's now opened up the access around on 17th to Gregory, and so we continue to look at what they're doing with that intersection as they make improvements, and we continue to follow. Those were some of the discussions. I know there's also the discussion of the group that is looking to place some things at the site for the new namesake of the bridge, General Chappie James. We met with them last week. Then we met with DOT. There's the appearance that we're going to get a jet, that the kind that General James used to fly. We're going to get one of those to go along with the statue there, but by the Visitor Information Center in that area, I think is where we're looking at, David. And so we're going to have that in place. So that's one project we continue to be working for, and we're very excited about seeing the completion and excited about getting that second bridge open, and again, shooting for fall of 22. West Cervantes project is anticipating a completion on May of 2022. Everything seems to be moving forward with that one. They've done most of the difficult work. The challenge right now is going to be putting in the mast arms and putting in the signalization. It was interesting. All of us are impacted by supply side. We felt they talked about how fortunate they felt that we actually had the mast arms, because right now there are people that are waiting 9 months to get those in. So the fact that we have those in and going in, I think is going to be a big deal. I think, I told them that I'd driven it already. If you haven't had the chance to drive it and see it, I've seen speeds going down significantly. We haven't even placed the traffic signals in. I believe, as I've stated for a long time, when you look at East Cervantes, that I think the traffic signals will have the biggest impact, and I think continue to improve what we're seeing there for pedestrians and bikes. And it simply goes to one of the things that we were looking at as well. We have two other projects that we've talked to them about pedestrian that are sort of in the works. And again, the first one would be the Palafox Street travel lane reduction road diet. That'd be from north of Cervantes all the way to the city line, looking at making that go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes with bike and pedestrian and parking perhaps on the outside and then just 2 lanes in the middle. We had a good conversation with them about that, and really looking to perhaps even look at really early 23. They have a road surfacing project that can tie into this. Obviously, they indicated to us there would need to be some work from the city to match it, but we've been asking them how much are they looking for, and then we would be able to come forward and ask council. So I do think that could be a reality by early 23. So that was one of the things we're excited about. The other one that we really like is the 2 laning of MLK and Davis. We think that this could also be a safety project, and we were trying to move it into safety project portion of it because we think there will be some funding that can happen to at least move that project up. Where it sits at the TPO priority list, it probably is buried behind a number of roads that will take significant amounts of money, but we did have a good conversation about looking at that really as safety. I mean, it's an issue where we have sometimes people driving the wrong way on the one-ways, and really it's trying to bring speed down in that area. Right now, those 2 roads really serve as kind of a place for people to just go fast to that area, and we'd like to turn it back into a neighborhood street like all the other streets in that area and turn it to 2 lane, bring the speed down. So we had those discussions, and I think if we can keep moving this forward as a safety project, I think we can see something happen with that as well. We then also talked about the Bayfront Parkway road diet, which is kind of our third project out there. It's going to take a little bit longer to materialize. It still needs to go through some of the TPO process as well. But we do think certainly from that Alkanese to Chase has the potential. Obviously, we have to plan to continue to allow truck traffic to get into the port, but I think there's a way to do that and still figure out how to move the diet and get things moving forward. It would have to be studied in feasibility, and that would have to go through the TPO process. But I do think we had good discussions about that as well, and I think that has the opportunity as we move forward. 9th Avenue Carpenter Creek bridge replacement. We had a good discussion on that. I mean, they anticipate construction completion by July 2022. So I told them that had gone much smoother than I ever anticipated. There's still, I thought the way they had done the traffic with the signal for pedestrians to go across there has worked. I think, I expected to hear a lot of complaints on some of the things getting through there, but it really hasn't been as bad of 9th Avenue of getting through that section. Obviously, things always come up around the malls when we get into the holiday season, and we really didn't experience too bad of a problem. And hopefully this will be complete, as I said, before we even have to go into another holiday season. So that was that was also very good to hear. And then finally, we discussed the issue at Carpenter's Creek and Davis Highway. FDOT is designing an erosion control stability measures to stop further erosion. Their focus will be on stopping things, and to an extent, they need to harden to prevent things from getting worse. However, they agree that restabilization of the creek, once they get their work done, needs to happen, and they are supportive of that. working with DEP even to figure out how that's happening. Obviously, the Carpenter's Creek is a restore project working with the county. I know that Commissioner Bender has been talking to them, and we wholeheartedly support that after the controls to stabilize in the back part of the creek bed are finalized, that we work with DEP. And again, we've said the only two projects the city really wants to see restore money focused is Hollis T. Williams and Carpenter's Creek, and we think either Restore and NERDA need to come in there and fix that. That's perfectly what they're made for, in fixing the challenges right there. And we certainly support DOT in that initiative, and talk to them about the need to get DEP, that yes, they need to stabilize, but we don't need to just leave it like that. We need to come back and do creek restoration with DEP. They agreed. And they thought, obviously, DEP has NERDA funding to do this. We have it as a restore project, and I know Commissioner Bender in Escambia County is working with that, so we certainly are supporting them in going along with that. So again, those are the long-term collaboration that we have that we think will be a much better improvement for the creek as we move forward. And we had generally a very good discussion with them on, as you can see, a lot of projects that are happening. So there's a lot going on in our part of the District 3 for DOT, and we had a really good conversation with the Secretary, and we really appreciated his time, and I thought it went real well on all fronts. We felt very positive about the discussion we had. COVID, we are seeing positivity rate for the 21st of January through the 27th of January, positivity rate was 32.8% as compared to 35.1% the previous week. We are seeing things come down on positivity, which we think will translate into hospitalizations. We've really seen hospitalizations basically hover and remain consistent for about a little over a week now. And these are well within the numbers of both the last winter uptick and certainly what we had with Delta. So we have not reached the high water marks of either of those two. We have a call today with the hospitals, and I'll check and see what they say about the patient load. But again, I think that they have not seen as dramatic a surge in the critical need. But obviously, they would have expected numbers to be moving down a little bit. But certainly they are operating well within what they can do and function. Friday, the 28th, we had 245. Saturday, we had 260. Sunday, we had 240. And today, we have 231. So, again, I think 260 is. We were at 259 was the previous high, so 260 would be a new high. But again, it's trended back down, and we've just kind of been in this fluctuation for now about nearly 2 weeks. So we'll continue to watch and monitor. But we stay on top of that, and I think the hospitals are still continuing to do all the things they need to do to get us through this, and certainly appreciate all the work that they're doing. Lastly, obviously today is the deadline at the encampment on I-110 to vacate and to go into different areas. We have done, obviously we've told you there are 3 different places that we will have permanent housing that will come online anywhere from the end of February to the middle of March. Those are continuing to move forward, and those repairs are being made at all of those locations. Right now, at this particular time, we have relocated. I don't know do we have the exact number, Lawrence, that we moved? I know over the weekend you moved a significant number of people. I know some of the temporary shelters we've moved is the one for REAP, is we've been placing people at Pathways for Change, which while still outdoors, it is under a tent and has heaters and some other things to dealing with the inclement weather. The other thing is we looked at a number of options for Bright Bridges in Dream House, but we ended up working with those individuals to place them in shelter in motel rooms until those could open up in a month. We looked at a variety of different options, but we ended up deciding the best thing to do was for us to go inside, and I think that was significant, seeing some of the challenges we've dealt with in a number of ways. But I know we've moved a bunch of people this weekend. They voluntarily moved. I don't know if you have numbers, if you have any totals on what those were.
I can talk to those. Just really the past the past 72 hours, I would say, we moved probably a total of around 50 plus individuals out of the encampment. As the mayor described, some are in temporary encampment over at Pathway for Change. approximately 17 individuals. We've got individuals in hotel rooms, approximately 15, and then we have those that really have been picked up by parents and loved ones from out of town that have relocated. And then we had a group that decided they wanted to go to a place of their choice and not any of our options that we offered. But totaling about 50 plus individuals that have relocated. On site now we have approximately 11 individuals that are being engaged by Lakeview for mental behavior kinds of services, and approximately about another 5 that have kind of still undecided about what they want to do as far as taking our options or not, and we'll be dealing with those today and tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Lawrence certainly has been working this from the beginning when he worked with John and Connie to start working over there as we try to deal with COVID, and deal with the homeless situation that had grown out of that. City of Pensacola continues to address as we can. That's about another 30 people to about the 80 people we had already been able to place. So that's now putting us up over 100 that we're able to start moving in shelter. I think that to me would be. I know it hasn't been the part that reached everybody, but I do think it's the success story of what we've been able to do and move people into a place that there weren't people in any housing, and now we've got some things moving. If we're going to cure homelessness, you can't expect the City of Pensacola to be the only jurisdiction that does that. But currently, it's the only jurisdiction that's out there trying to do something. It also is increasingly tough for other jurisdictions to have the courage to go do this if all they get is that it's constantly a negative situation of all the people associated with it. I do think I have been pleased, at least in the last probably couple of weeks. It seems once we got over the vote and we decided to move forward, we've had generally good collaboration from a number of the players to really work together and find solutions. And I think that's been the most exciting part of this to me, what's happened in the last 3 weeks. We obviously do have a number of people, as Mr. Powell indicated, probably nearly a dozen people. I talked with Dr. Joseph on Friday. He started today at 9 o'clock. He was out on site and meeting with those individuals, still looking at how we deal with a long-term plan. Obviously, this is way beyond the city's capacity and understanding, but this is why we've given money to the experts who we see as Lakeview, and we think they should. And I know this is challenging even for them in dealing with some of that, but they certainly have the expertise. We don't, and I think if we really want to start to make some real long-term solutions, we've got to find out a better way to address the mental health. And I do appreciate at least Lakeview at this point stepping up and hoping to find something for those 11 individuals, as Mr. Powell indicated. As I said, this now leaves us with probably a handful of people as we go close the park. Tonight, and as we move tomorrow into really beginning cleanup work and construction. At that point, we need the site cleared by that time in the morning. It is certainly our hope that everybody will have vacated and gone somewhere else. We will, like I said, we're out there addressing people one-on-one today. We'll do the same in the morning and try to address it and move them. But we've got to have everybody out of there tomorrow as we start work on the cleanup and redesign so it can be back open in 2 weeks. We do expect to come back open on the 15th of February. So again, that we will have we'll have everything go forward. Casey's probably mad at me because I haven't read all the things that were on here, but
I told you didn't have to read all of them.
But we are working our partnerships with our nonprofit parties, and we'll continue to work to smooth this transition. After notices were posted on January 10th, code enforcement officers walked through the encampment to speak with individuals about informing them of the posted notice. Code enforcement officers also distributed 211 resources, which I think this is kind of a street survival guide that we put out there. We also put a list out there of all the places that the city is donating to and working with organizations so that they can make contact with those organizations. Again, we're not forcing anybody to go anywhere. We're simply giving them options and telling them they need to go somewhere, but they can't stay in that location, and that's not going to be, again, what we can do. City staff and representatives from homeless organizations have visited the encampment multiple times over the past weeks to reinforce the information and posted notice. And the people living in the camp must collect their belongings and vacate as outlined in the posted notices. Beginning Tuesday, February 1st, the city will thoroughly clean and sanitize the area and collect all remaining personal items. Any items left behind at the encampment will be safely stored until Wednesday, March 16th, 2022 on site. During this period, individuals will have the opportunity to collect their belongings as indicated in the posted notice. So that's sort of where we are today. I'll turn over the questions to you. We also, I guess, will be meeting with council, setting up things for next week's council meeting. And I do know on that there's going to be parcels 4 and 5. We do have something intended to go forward on parcels 4 and 5 that will be the term sheet and an option agreement, so they can begin to pay on the option, and we can work through some of the other things. There are a number of things to address in the term sheet, but we really need to find out from the council if we can move forward with the basic terms. I think it's a good option to begin to get more residential downtown. We are dealing with housing issues and price issues. The best way to do that is to create more supply. As I said before, I was on the radio this morning just indicating that we have the demand. People know companies are coming here. So we are seeing a variety of things happen in this community that we've never seen. And again, I said this in May of 2020. Once we got through COVID, I saw communities our size with really growing airports, good connections everywhere, that were going to really find themselves in a very good position going forward. We are now there. The demand is totally here. We need the supply. It's not a better time than right now to begin to try to get residential product out there. We need to do something in all facets. Again, not just, certainly this is for rent. We are working with Marcy Whitaker. We're hoping to bring somebody else on staff. We interviewed last week, and I know we have a plan to come forward that we were discussing that we'll probably unveil with you. I know Marcy, David, and Kareth and I have been discussing a couple things. So I think we got a plan coming forward as well on some things that were brought forward about some lots, cheated lots that are in the city. So I think we're beginning to formulate some plans and move forward with something that can also help combat some of the at least on the supply side, being able to grow to meet that demand. So hopefully we can begin to bring down prices. So that's kind of where we are. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions and look forward to getting those. John.
Mayor, you mentioned the challenges remaining at the bridge overpass with the mental health issues. A number of the homeless advocates independently have told us just yesterday that Lakeview doesn't have any more inpatient facilities. And so one of the challenges must be is the professionals over at Lakeview, how do they treat people who are under the bridge today and are obviously in need of inpatient care?
We absolutely agree with you, John, and that's something that needs to be addressed. Mental health funding generally comes from the state, and I would say for a long time, local government, cities and counties have complained that more money needs to be placed into mental health funding for these variety of issues. So I think you're going to see that need continue. We've obviously put forward a number of amount of money in this, what we've done here. Our expectation is for Lakeview to address those individuals, the 11 individuals that we're talking about that are there right now. I had a conversation with Dr. Joseph on Friday that we really need Lakeview to step up and do something and figure some things out. All of us have been pressed into doing some things that are a little bit unusual, maybe not the normal, but we've different way to find out to serve individuals. Our expectation is Lakeview will be creative and try to figure out what they can do to service individuals. That's the gist of my conversation with Dr. Joseph. And I mean, he seemed intent on trying to find something and realizing that maybe the traditional ways, as they are all packed up, there are different ways for us to explore and see what we can do alternatively. We've certainly done that as the city. We've given Lakeview money, and we expect Lakeview to figure out a solution that may be alternative.
Several of the task force members were in Tallahassee talking to the delegation this weekend about that very subject. Do you have any feedback from their visit? Senator Broxton's the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Budget Committee.
And that would be
Certainly
good.
has some influence.
And I think we'll continue to lean on Doug on those things. I can tell you, I'm looking forward to being there next week. The League of Cities goes to there. The very first, I guess I was elected, it was March of 19, we went there, and the League of Cities had a big thing on mental health, and we went to, it's essentially the Lakeview for the Tallahassee area, and I think it was Appalachia, whatever it is. We went there and talked with them, and it was amazing to me how many communities said they were having the same problems that we were having in Pensacola. It's all over the state of Florida. And it all comes down to there needs to be more funding that goes into mental health. It clearly has not been funded as fully as it properly should have, and we really need the legislature to step up to that commitment. And I realize sometimes it's sexier and you get more votes if you give a sales tax holiday, but I think what we need services, and what we really need is people not to save $5 to $10 on the weekend, but rather if every Floridian put in $5 to $10 and we could begin to address real issues dealing with mental health. It would be huge. Representative Salzman has been also taking an initiative dealing with mental health, and fairly significant in looking to take her findings to the legislature, so fully support her. Casey has been involved from our side. I go to the meetings as well. I reminded Michelle that she probably gets a lot more out of Casey going to them than me, but Casey's done a lot to kind of help them on some messaging, and we'll continue to do that. I think what she's doing is good, and I think it brings attention and awareness, and it really does need to say we need to do some more practical. It's an infrastructure issue, John. I mean, it's just, that's what it is. It's human infrastructure, and we need to put more money into it.
Would you be willing to entertain any council items that would come forward to spend more ARPA money on acquiring additional facilities in this area?
Well, again, we'll certainly, we have some money that's still left in the homeless situation. I think we're looking for what is successful and how we do it, and we'll spend our money in that direction. John, I think if cities and counties begin to spend their money in solving mental health, it only allows the state to spend less money, which that's not what we need. We need the state to step up and fully fund what they should fund. So I don't think the solution is to I think the state would love that if counties and cities just stepped up and they could get out of it altogether. It's their responsibility. They need to be funding it. And again, I think that's where we should, as cities and counties, go to the legislature, which will be there next weekend. The FLC will. I know the county's FAC went a couple of weeks ago, and probably one of our major initiatives will be continuing to tell them to fund mental health. That's something they need to do.
Mayor, cleaning out the park and collecting all the items left over going to be located at those officials. There's a lot of stuff that people have left behind out there. I guess, is there a process to organize that, or is it?
I had I had some discussion with some people over the weekend who were helping individuals move, and there was a lot of question. They had looked at it. I know Lawrence has looked at some of the stuff. There's a number of stuff that is personal items that that people needed to go, and I know they were moving that. They actually had a moving truck and were moving a number of those items to the locations where people were going. There have been a number of items, what I was told, that were left that were just soiled and trash. Those will be disposed of. We will evaluate that. We've tried to be very clear here. Take your belongings. If you leave, when you leave, you need to take your belongings. But I do understand there's a possibility people may leave something. That's why we have, we have this process that we will look through personal items. But, again, if it's one of those things where it appears that's in a pile of what's already been gone through and placed as soiled and trash, then we're going to simply have that disposed of. So, we've tried to think of everything possible that we can. But the better way to do it is everybody needs to just take their belongings with them. And the great thing is, I know the work that was done the other day. They had moving trucks the past week. We've been moving everything. So, if you have stuff and what you needed to get out of there, we had a way to get it. Like I told you before, we were going to bring all resources to bear to try to find a way to get people moved out of there. And I think for the most part, we've done a great job of it. And I think some of the challenging ones that we have are still dealing with the mental health, and we've asked Lakeview to help us and be creative how they do it.
Yeah, that was my next follow-up question. Is obviously a small number of people left behind, maybe mental health, and some people who may just not want to leave. I guess the deadline to be out of the park is 5 p.m. today. What's going to happen after the deadline?
Well, we got to have everybody out there in the morning tomorrow morning, and police and code enforcement will be working with that. We'll be putting up an area for us to be able to safely store any other personal items. So we've got a number of things that will be going on tomorrow that will really sort of turn the site into sort of almost like a mini construction area. So we will need everybody cleared out by that time. If we have individuals at that time, we'll continue to work with them to find a solution for them. That solution may be as creative as what Mr. Powell said, is they want to go back to wherever they were. If there's a place they can go here, we'll find a way to work to get them there, but they can't be there. So that's going to be, we'll figure it out as we go through. And, my whole goal is that we work to get all those individuals relocated and moved out of there. Yes, John?
Mayor, a local woman here last Friday started a Change.org petition to roll back FP&L current rates. It's become the most trending, the largest petition in the state of Florida in just 4 days, 4,000 people plus this morning. Are you satisfied with the way the transition's gone between FP&L and Gulf Power?
I think nobody likes paying more, and those are challenges that we're running into. I think there are a variety of things that are occurring that are part of that, and part of it is what we know. We need to be transitioning out of ways that were older ways of getting energy and find ways that we can get energy that are more renewable, which we've been pushing. I don't know, again, I haven't followed a variety of things to know what is going on in that industry. Or what creates the issue, but I think all of us are concerned about pricing. With that said, I've told you I'm not exactly sure what do we do as the alternative, because I'm not exactly sure that if the City of Pensacola takes over your line infrastructure that you're going to see cheaper rates. You're actually probably going to see more expensive rates. And I've been very candid. If rates are already more as expensive as they are, why would we make them more expensive? That would seem to be a bad decision for us. So I haven't seen anything that says us taking over the lines is going to make it cheaper. That didn't even come out last week. Again, if you look at the cities that have done it, I know I talked at length with a council member that had investigated that and said, it was significantly higher. Of course, the medium income in Winter Park is almost double what it is in the City of Pensacola. I mean, there's just a variety of things that are different in that community that are different in this community. But as I told you, to me, cost is the number one issue. We cannot make it more expensive. People are already challenged enough with the expense. So I think we have to be very careful that we don't do anything else that makes it more expensive. What happens with FP&L and the changes they've gone through, and all of us are going through. I mean, it's certainly disappointing, and we'd love to find a way through it to get on a more stabilized. I mean, when you look at, it's the same thing that happens with gasoline prices when gasoline goes up. But we as a local government don't set gasoline prices. We don't set electricity prices. So. Those are things we just have to work with, and certainly we're frustrated by the increases we've seen, but we've seen increases in almost everything coming out of COVID. I mean, I think we're all experiencing a level of inflation that's going to happen coming out of COVID. Yes, ma'am.
A little off topic here, but do you know if there are any efforts underway to bring back the first response trucks in the fire department? I know some people want to bring those back. Obviously, they're quicker for emergency calls. Didn't know if you could maybe speak to that at all. First
response vehicles. I'm not aware of anything that we don't have first response vehicles. And again, you might want to check and make sure We've got all the vehicles we've had in LOST and continue to stay on top of, and I hadn't heard any of that. Now, that may be an issue with county fire and rescue. And again, I don't know. I haven't stayed on top of that one, but I mean, I've been with. In fact, I was just out a couple of weeks ago with Chief Craner visiting all the sites and asking everybody, what is a priority for you and the fire department to keep us safe and to keep our citizens safe. And this never came up. I went to all 7. There are 7 numbered stations. There are only 6 stations, so I went to all 6 stations, and there were no. I didn't hear that from one of the stations from any of the firefighters. So you may be getting a different fire service department, because I certainly hadn't heard of that.
What did they say some of the concerns were to?
They're concerned. They're always, their biggest thing is, well, first off, they were very appreciative. They felt like we had taken care of them from personnel standpoint and from equipment. We have been on top of it. Our biggest challenge right now is we do have a couple of aging vehicles, but we have made orders. Our biggest problem is like everybody else. It's the supply side. Fire trucks that used to could take over a year from the order to be placed to get in. Now it's significantly longer because of just all the challenges that everybody is dealing with. So again, I think this is why you're going to see inflationary pressure. You've got people needing a lot of things all over, and the supply is not nearly keeping up with what the demand is. So we're all going to see prices going up. But we have been out there with as much of our ordering as we can, and we've tried to maintain our fleet. And I see Kareth here, who Chief Craner reports to, and I have not heard anything one way or the other. I think we've generally stayed on top with our LOST purchases and making sure that they had up-to-date equipment and what they're doing.
The new scooters launched last week. Is the plan to keep both the bird scooters and the new ones, or is it just kind of testing out to see which one works better?
I think we're looking at a lot of things. It's obviously free market. They both have the ability to bring the number of scooters they've got. But I do think a lot of it is going to depend on what we get that comes back over time. Interesting that you said that, because y'all were here for a press conference. We've driven both the stand-up and the sit-down scooter. We've done it outside, and I know a lot of you were there when we did it. For me personally, I think the sit-down scooter is more comfortable and easier to operate. I think from also the individuals, the cars and other things that see it, it looks like a bike, it feels like a bike, it feels like stuff they already see, a motorcycle on the road. So I tend to think it's more similar. One of the big challenges, though, we could not have had those on the sidewalk, which is why we wanted to move to this, which when we get done with the second reading, the scooters will no longer be able to be on the sidewalk after next Thursday. Certainly hoping the council passes that. But I do think the sit-down scooters perhaps create an opportunity for us to see something that is more similar to what we're used to seeing. I think both from the user standpoint and from the other drivers, and my hope is that we'll have fewer accidents out of it. So those are the things we're working on with scooters. We'll evaluate the whole program when we get done with the year, and we'll figure out what we want to do, and we'll figure out whether, at that point, the council can also make decisions as to whether they want to limit the type. But my thought was, unless we try it, we won't know what we like. So my thing was to want to get some of the sit-down scooters out there, because I think it may be a better solution for both the riders and the rest of the citizens than the stand-up version. Yes.
Just follow up on the FPL issue. I guess, do you support at least a feasibility study to see if the rates would be lower? Because your former city administrator Keith Wilkins put out there publicly and sent a memo to the council that municipal rates on average are about 10% lower in Florida than investor-owned utilities.
Again, I think from our standpoint, I'm not sure what I thought Keith's main issue was feeling like we needed to negotiate the contract that we had. Again, that was never as much my feel. Like I told you before, I love everybody that works here, but half of the problem that we had with the negotiation is the idea that the city should get the ability to raise its franchise fee. I was like, no, we're not doing that. The only, I mean, if we were going to get payment from people in South Florida, I would sign up and say, yeah, let's raise it and let's get more money here. But the only place we're going to be taking it from is our own people. So I was very quick to say, and that was staff's biggest issue in roadblock in us negotiating the franchise agreement. No, we're not going to raise it. I just told John, I said, I'm not going to make power any more expensive for you. That's as long as I'm here, which will be 10 months. Your power is not going up because of the city of Pensacola. I can't control what happens with FP&L, but I can assure you that your power is not going up because of the city of Pensacola. So we're trying to work with that as well, and make sure whatever we do, we don't come up. That's not exactly what I heard on the issue with Winter Park when they went through their conversion. There's going to be a fairly significant investment by the city to have to buy the lines. And then figure out how to pay that over time. My understanding is it shoots your rates up pretty high. Maybe on the back end, like after 15 years or so, maybe your rates can start to come down. That seems like a long time for us to buy into a proposal when we're already having significant housing costs rise, power costs rise. I don't think the city can contribute to that, and I think it would be a bad decision. I'm here for another 10 months. I can't control what happens after that. I just think it'd be a terrible decision by the city to make power more expensive in any way.
So you don't think getting a feasibility study to have that in black and white to say this is what?
I mean, if the council wants to do that, it's their initiative. I mean, they're welcome to look at whatever they want to do. I mean, if you notice, we are not participating in their things. That's their stuff. If they want to do it, go do it. I mean, again, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. We are not going to do anything here that makes your power more expensive.
And I wanted to ask about too the letter from the Office of Public Counsel. It said it was responding to a request from your office.
Correct. We sent that in when they first started talking about it. I think I made mention of it when we were here, and I asked. I got a call from Senator Broxson. I think when this discussion item first came up, and he asked that we reach out, and I did. It wasn't totally what I was looking for in some ways, but I mean, it certainly at least was some information. So, I think, again, my goal was to try to get some of the, at least some information from all sources to the council. So, I think last week, Jim, I tried to make it very clear. Price was the number one issue for me. Renewables was a second, in the sense that I don't think it would be acceptable for us to lower the amount of percentage of renewables. I mean, whatever you're going to say about FP&L, as opposed to what we had before with the Southern Company, they are making inroads into. They've got solar farms all over the place. They got one here at Softly Field, and a variety of things happening that they're trying to build renewables. So I do think at least they are going into a higher percentage of renewables. They've also gotten rid of coal. They've gone to natural gas. There are a variety of things, I think, from FP&L that they've made a commitment to the renewable side. And I think we as citizens should at least say there's a minimum that we're not going to go below. Although, obviously price is my first one. And then last is reliability. And I think we as citizens need to make sure that we have reliability on power. I continue to hear that also out of other places who've had municipal service. I've talked to several of my good friends in Tallahassee about challenges they've had with outages. And again, the worst thing than paying expensive for power is paying for it and then not getting the power. That would also be pretty bad, Jim. So I think reliability is something we've got to have, as well. We can't sacrifice reliability, and I cannot stress this enough. We are in a time of labor shortages almost everywhere. For us to start this process with no line people, and again, Gulf Power is not getting rid of people. They still have all of Escambia County, Santa Rosa, and everywhere else. Where are we going to compete to get people to bring them in with a skilled position? We're going to have to pay significantly more. So, Jim, I'd be very concerned with where we find ourselves at this particular time in a time of raising rates and raising wages. I'm not sure that this is probably the best time for us to be moving to exercise this. And again, if stuff normalizes back out, maybe those would be better times for us to look at. But I mean, there're just a variety of issues I'm looking at, saying how are we going to compete? And I hope you and I hope your listeners and your readers also see that those are real potential possibilities. As somebody said to me, they said you know, when everybody was, they said it's like everybody just thinks somehow or another that it's so bad that it couldn't get worse. Well, I can assure you, things can be worse. Somehow or another, if we're not prepared to take over the service, we can make your service worse if that was the case. And I think it would just be, I think we just got to be careful in this particular time, especially when you do assessments and go, hey, we're going to put it on and we're going to look at what happened through the early 20-teens. Totally different time period coming out of post-COVID. I mean, all the issues, just what we talked about earlier. You can't get fire trucks. You can't get other stuff. I mean, this is an inflationary period, and for you to think that somehow you're going to look at numbers in the past and it's going to tell you what you want, I just have real concern with that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And I think, Kareth, we're going to do the press conference and then go to Tallahassee, right, next week? Yeah, I plan on being here at 9:30 next week.